What if seniors could stay connected to family, to staff, and programs without ever touching a smartphone or tablet? Today's guest is helping communities bridge the tech gap with a simple device that's changing engagement, communication, and even wellness tracking. Let's get into it.
Welcome to From Leads to Leases, a CCR growth podcast that helps senior living providers transform their complex challenges into opportunities. Listen in for stories from industry leaders, innovative strategies, and insights. And with our expertise, learn how to increase occupancy faster, guaranteed.
Welcome back to another episode of From Leads to Leases, the podcast that dives deep into the senior living and senior care industries, bringing you insights, strategies, and stories from the experts at the forefront of innovation, leadership, and care. I'm your host, Jerry Vinci, CEO of CCR Growth. For those of you who don't know about us, CCR Growth is a full-service marketing and growth agency exclusive to the senior living industry. And throughout this podcast, I'm here to guide you through the evolving landscape of senior care, exploring the innovations, the strategies, and leadership insights that are shaping the future of the industry. Whether you're a provider, a caregiver, or industry leader, this show is here to help you make informed decisions and create meaningful impact. Today, we're joined by Savannah Andriacco, Senior Living Advisor for Onscreen, a company that's transforming how seniors connect with family, staff, and even healthcare providers all through their TV. With a background as a resident programs director at Brookdale Senior Living, Savannah knows firsthand the challenges communities face in engaging residents and how technology can bridge the gap without overwhelming staff or seniors. So in this episode, we've got a lot to cover. We're going to talk about how tech can improve resident engagement without adding work for the staff, why seniors struggle with traditional devices and what's being done to fix it, and how AI-driven reminders and telehealth can enhance care and quality of life. So Savannah, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
This is a great product, and I love talking tech in senior living just because I feel like this is one of the few industries where we're a little behind, and anytime we can bring something new that actually is easier for people to use and adopt, I think it's a really exciting time. So you went from senior living director to age tech innovator. So I just want to talk about that. Working years inside senior living communities, I mean, what led you from resident engagement to the tech world with Onscreen?
Yeah, so in my career in senior living, I held the resident program director role, finance director role, and associate executive director. And honestly, during my time, or at the end of my time, I was quite burnt out. It was really after I left in 2023, but in that period of time, after 2020, we, had a lot of staffing challenges, and I was kind of running our building like on my own. So at that point I got really like, you know what, it's time. And, thankfully we also had it was time to get married, start our family as well. So we decided to leave, but I found myself still wanting to be in senior living, but also wanting some sort of work-life balance. And I didn't know what that looks like because I just had none before. And so I started to look at anything like work from home, like I could still maybe go to communities. At one point I helped be, like an operations director, for a time where I went to another Brookdale community and kind of helped them, start up. And I loved that. So I was like, maybe, but do I want to travel? So there was all these things going in my head, but I was like, I know one thing, and it's I have a passion for senior living. And so how can I be in senior living? So there's got to be something. So Onscreen came to me, and when I was presented with the opportunity, I was just like, this is something I would have bought in for my residents. And I know I would have had an easy time talking about it with the families that I served, the staff. And so that already to me was like, okay, if I would have used this, like I do think this would be extremely beneficial in senior living communities. And so that's really what brought that. I have no experience in tech. So this is really my first tech role, which is cool because it's like I'm learning so much when it comes to like a startup compared to working for such a large senior living company. But yeah, I think now I can see, because the company I worked for also didn't really adopt technology. If they did, it was going to be more on the staff side versus the resident side. But what I saw in 2020 is I had to teach seniors how to use tech and how useful it really was. So when the opportunity came, it was a no-brainer for me that like I would have used this, so I would love to help other seniors and, get this in front of them.
Let's talk a little bit about what Onscreen is, because I know our audience is always interested in new tech, and it's such a cool product.
Yeah, so Onscreen, so basically we're a TV communication hub for seniors, and we have a small device that goes on top of the television. It's got a camera and a microphone, shutter as well, so if somebody wanted to turn that off, but it ultimately just hooks up with an HDMI cord and plugs into the wall, so you don't have a bunch of cords everywhere. And if you have an external cable box, that would plug right into our device as well. And so that helps us with that CEC integration, where if they're watching TV and a call comes in, it can switch over without having to use the remote. Now, we do have an easy to use remote that allows seniors to also call out, but basically, we provide video calls for seniors and their families, loved ones. But we also have our AI companion Joy, who's able to do health check ins. She's able to have conversations, whether it be a daily joke or a medication reminder. So that varies, or they can also initiate that from the senior's end to just simply have a conversation, which we see oftentimes. But really, it's just a form to keep the senior engaged, where many are nervous to use technology or just, kind of shut the idea out of it. So, how could we use something that they might not be so scared of and that helps them easily communicate with their family and loved ones and healthcare providers as well, because we can integrate with telehealth.
Yeah. And I love this too, because it really doesn't take any effort on the part of the older adult to be
Mhm.
tech savvy at all to use it. So I think that's the best advantage of this. They don't have to learn anything new.
Absolutely. And that's really the whole point. It's like, how can we just take the technical barrier out for them? Because that's what keeps a lot of them from engaging.
So a lot of providers, we know they struggle with bringing new tech into senior living. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced in your previous roles with tech? I'm very curious
Yeah.
about that. And then how does Onscreen help solve them?
Yeah. I think, well, the big one right now that we're trying to solve is with our AI companion. So these wellness check-ins. And what I saw often, I oversaw our assisted living department for a time, and just the time it took our staff to really provide care for these seniors. And then there's some seniors who don't need as much care depending on their care plan, but then there are some who needed like above and beyond. So how can we really make sure that the in-person care that we're giving is efficient and those who really need it are getting it? Whereas sometimes you would walk into a room and things happen, but it's kind of a ripple effect. They start asking questions about all sorts of different things, whereas our AI companion can do a wellness check in the morning, whether it be over video or just through our AI companion speaking and it's transcribed. But then that can be sent to the staff and they can see that before they even go in for their first appointment or for their first in-person check in with the senior. So that way, instead of going in and just being like, "How are you today? Like, we got to start getting this," they can already go in and say,
They already
"I
know.
saw you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw you had a
Yeah.
headache this morning. How are you feeling?" And then on that end, the senior also feels much more heard, because they're like, oh, they heard that, they took that information and used, it just makes the conversation much more efficient because I know oftentimes you're going in there and it's like, there's all sorts of things that are coming up or they're remembering to talk about. And then now even with our staff and service alignment, then that would push staff back maybe 2 hours where that nurse is over their hours, 2 hours, but the other nurse already came in. So now you have two nurses during the same time they're finishing up and so it just took so much time of us having conversations about it. And so I think just the efficiency that the AI could really help bring out of all of that. Another thing, we used to have like weekly meetings about that would last 1 to 2 hours, and it would include all of the high level directors or at least somebody from each department. And we would go through a list of our seniors and give them a rating, whether or not we think they're doing well or not. Is there anything for us to look out? And yes, those meetings are still important, but again, how much time that took, because oftentimes they would like get veered off and, now we're talking about this one person for so long and it might not be an efficient use of time. Whereas Whereas now what we're looking to do with those AI conversations and check-ins is, are they a fall risk? Asking small survey questions to the seniors, and then those get pulled to a dashboard for the organization to kind of see, okay, who needs attention right now? Like who, and some of those questions are like, are you using furniture while you're kind of moving around your apartment? So that they can catch things instead of like, this person fell, we didn't really even think about that, because maybe they are better with talking to the AI companion than they are the staff. They might be embarrassed and like, I don't want to share that. Like, I'm fine.
Yeah. No, we use that even in marketing with sentiment analysis, where we'll even look at like a block of reviews and we'll pull out certain words and we'll start to see a central theme. And okay, based on the words that people are using, if they mention staff and they mention caring and they mention food, we know that, we're on the right track. But if they mention management, it's typically not in the best light. So we know that something's going on there that we need to look
Mhm.
at with the community. So it's kind of the same on your end. That's great that you're doing that. I think two things that really brings up is the efficiency in terms of continuation of care. Like you were saying, when there's a shift change, just being able to look at the notes and see what the AI companion was able to pick up. That way
Mhm.
everyone's in the loop about what's going on. And then I was also thinking too, when you were talking about it, that I wonder how many older adults feel more comfortable talking with the AI companion than actually revealing something to a nurse or to a staff member, because they might feel embarrassed. I know
Mhm.
self-reporting is such a big problem for older adults. A lot of times they're not feeling as well as they claim to be, and they're just not letting on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I
Yeah.
think overall it'd be helpful, and really we're not trying to take away in-person care. We're trying to really enhance that in-person care, and just utilize the staff's time more efficiently so that they can care for those who really need it.
I know seniors, like we talked about, they're hesitant to adopt new technology.
Mhm.
What do you think is the biggest barrier typically to adoption? And then how does OnScreen eliminate those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the invasiveness, really. And you see that with all types of technology. I know, speaking for us specifically, what we get sometimes is, I don't want a camera in my apartment, which completely understand that. And so we go through those conversations, and that's why we have the shutter. So you can keep that shut, and it's not something that automatically opens for them as well. Like, you have to manually open it in order for that video to ever be appeared. The calls can still come in, but the person on the other side just can't see you. But I think, just that invasiveness, you have a lot of people who maybe want to install those nanny cams, or the information that, again, just like automatically pops on. And I think it's just, again, listening to the seniors and really hearing them, instead of just like, hey, this is what we're putting into your apartment. This is kind of universal. And I think you can still get to a point where, like, this is what we put in the units, but just listening to what they have to say about it, rather than just, well, oh, well, like, we want to watch you, we want to be, because really it's kind of selfish. It's like, well, you would see it on the family standpoint. We would see that often where they had like a lot of drop in things, and it would be like, well, that's for the family. It's not for the senior. They're like, this thing just pops on. But having those conversations with them and really listening to them, I know we kind of have like security and privacy measures that we give to our seniors that we work with, just to ensure that they know, like, this is a very secured network. We don't hold any of your data. And even with the app that the families or loved ones join, that has to be something that someone's invited to. You can't just download our app and like join it and get on there. So you have to be invited. So it's a close knit circle that only those people can contact you. And we also have something set up where you can set hours, because we do have auto answers for those calls to really take out that technology barrier. But again, if you're talking with that senior and they say, I don't want any calls coming in, after 6 p.m. Okay, we can set that up where we have that blocked off and no calls can come in after that time.
That's pretty awesome. I love that. It sounds like just the simplicity of it just lends itself to be better than smartphones or tablets.
Hmm.
But I mean, it's essentially fulfilling a lot of the same functionality. Why do you think this approach is so much more effective than other tech solutions for seniors?
I think just the TV being the like universal piece in a house, really, and especially those seniors are very comfortable with TVs. Again, maybe not to press all the buttons, but they're usually sitting in front of the TV, oftentimes, or at least the TV's kind of running in the background. I did a survey last summer where I went to different senior centers and senior living communities and spoke with seniors specifically, not introducing on screen to them, but asking, are they comfortable with the iPhone? Are they comfortable with a tablet? Why? Have they tried to do video calls? And a lot of what I got was the video calls are like out. They haven't really tried to do them because it's like, I don't know how to do it. Like I know how to dial my daughter's phone number or dial a regular phone number. And I know how to do I know where to get to these three things. And I don't really have use for anything else. And then again with the screen as well. So the screen's too small. I can't, see, or even on the iPad, like still. So what I found is just they don't do video calls, which again, they're missing out on a lot of opportunities to engage with their loved ones, because I know in our community, a lot of seniors, their families lived, they had 5 kids and they're just completely spread out, don't get to see the grandkids, could talk to them on the phone. But again, it's just a different type of engagement for them. So I think that just universal piece of the TV and being comfortable to them already, it's not really a new piece of technology. Yes, we're putting a device on top, but they don't have to learn how to tap all these new things.
Yeah. It's voice commands essentially is how they're operating it.
Yeah, so with the video calls, again, it's mainly the person on the other end. So it's usually the caregiver who's really operating things from their app. So they're usually the ones calling in. They're the ones setting the health reminders. And again, those all just pop up on the television at the time. So the senior doesn't have anything to do with those check-ins. But if they wanted to use the remote, because for example, we do offer like live classes. So we've been offering some like live exercise classes through Zoom. And again, they can choose to register for those. And so we just have a simple like icons on the TV and the remote just goes over and they can select it. They can also choose to call someone and they would need to use the remote for that. We're not at the point yet where they can just say like, hey, Joy, call this. They can with the remote and then it'll put Joy on and then she can pull it up for them and start calling somebody, but they still have to initiate it. But for most people, I think we see that they just often don't use the remote because it's the family member that's operating. And the family member can even have access to like change their television over. So if they're having trouble, or it's like, I want to watch something like this and maybe they don't know how to get it, we're integrated with Pluto TV as well. And they can just go through and find a show and they can put it on and it goes on their parents' television. They can do it all from the app. So again, it's like, oh, something's on my TV and I don't know how to go or something. The caregiver can do it from their phone.
That's so cool. I love that piece of it. And that was actually going to be the next thing I was going to ask you about, just the family engagement piece, because like you said, I mean, you could have 5 siblings that live all the way across the country. And typically in a caregiving setting, there's one person who's the primary caregiver for
Mhm.
the older adult, and the rest of the kids are involved somewhat, maybe, but not really. And this kind of gives everyone in the family an opportunity to really pitch in and help contribute to, filling up their mom or dad's schedule with all these amazing things throughout the
Mhm.
day. So I think that's pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Are there other ways that on-screen can help kind of bridge that gap for family members that maybe are farther away from their loved ones?
Really the easiest way is through those video calls. We see some family members as well who maybe do like a family Zoom where they have like all the members on there like once a month or, ever so often. And they can enter that meeting ID and information in Zoom. We're integrated with Zoom. So they can put that in. And now mom or dad can also join that family Zoom as well. So that way they can see everybody again. They're sitting on their couch. So it's easy for them. It just pops up at the designated time.
That's cool.
But otherwise, mostly that's the way. Another is like those AI companions. So they can choose to have this on or off. But if they choose to have it on, if they're interacting with Joy, again, like they could do a painting with Joy. Like they could just talk to her and say, I want to see a painting that looks like this and has mountains and water. And she starts to create this painting with them. And when they're done, she keeps the painting and it goes through to our app and it shows the family member, like, look what I painted with your mom today. So they get to see those little interactions as well if that add-on is on.
What's the scope of the AI part of it? I mean, how in depth and how much learning does it do over time with the resident?
Yeah, over time. So it really gets to know the resident and about what they talk about. So, for example, I know we have someone at one of our organizations who the first time she used it, she talked to Joy about yoga. And Joy brought on, like, was like, let's talk about yoga, talked about some different poses, asked her, like, have you done this? Brought up a chair yoga class for her, which was awesome. And then the next couple times they talked, they're talking about other things and the conversation was starting to go down and Joy, brought that back up. It's like, have you looked into yoga anymore? So you can already see, like, even in those first conversations, she's already starting to get to know that individual and pull back on that. So that way, again, it's not like you're talking to just a robot every time of like, I got to refresh her and tell her
Yeah, I got to
everything
remind
over.
her what I like again.
Yeah, exactly. So she does hold on to that.
That's very cool. Another thing too, I think communities struggle with resident program attendance.
Hmm.
There's so many programs throughout the day a lot of times, and I know from previous guests I've had on, they're like, yeah, there might be like one or two people who show up for an event. How are you seeing on-screen being used to increase engagement in community activities?
Yeah, so a couple things. We have these reminders and messages that can go on the television. So with one community, that's really the thing that they're going to be utilizing the most from the community side of it because they're independent living. And they can send messages and reminders of one to either a mass group of people, so to remind everybody that you have a happy hour. I know we would do like for example, just for a holiday, we would have a large party and we'd kind of be like, where is everybody? Like we sent out an email. I have flyers. I sent out paper. I sent out, like, there's so many things to remind them and still nobody comes. And you're like, how can I get more people? But that could be something that you even flash on the TV 30 minutes before the event. Like, as a reminder, we have this at 4 o'clock today, and that you can send to everybody. When it comes down to a smaller level, we would have people, if you have a group of people that comes to chorus and that these three people always forget or they forget their song sheet, you can just select those three people and say, reminder chorus starts in 15 minutes on the second floor, bring your song sheet. And you can personalize those to an individual as well, to where you're saying, like, Mrs. Smith, looking forward to seeing you at chorus in 15 minutes. So then she's like, oh, okay, let me get my stuff. So we're hoping to increase resident engagement in that way of just getting the seniors out into the community. We don't want them to just be sitting in front of the TV,
Yeah.
obviously, like it's enhances their experience, but we do want them, out in the community. So I really see that being the biggest thing. And we also haven't fully integrated with any specific company yet, but we are looking to. I know a lot have those TV channels. We had one ourselves. The thing with the TV channels, we never really used ours because it was so complicated for us to input the data. Like, only one person could log in. You had to be on a specific computer in the building to do it. And we had so many programs that it was like, this doesn't make sense. Like, yes, it would be great for the seniors, but then they also have to remember to go to that channel and turn that channel on. And then they can have the information. And then we're updating that constantly. The model that we at least had didn't make a lot of sense. So we are looking to kind of pilot this with some communities of, like, how can we pull on that use and, like, really bring your programs specifically for your community into the program. And we are doing an upcoming pilot where it can't show flyers quite yet or, like, show a menu, but we are giving the activities to Joy. And so a senior can say, what's going on in the community today? And Joy can read all of the activities that are happening in the community. So they can utilize it like that. Again, we're just starting to pilot that. But for us, I think a big thing will be integrating that community specific engagement so that we can really get seniors out and socializing with others.
I'd be really curious to see what the engagement and attendance rates were for communities who
Hmm.
implement this versus the ones who don't, because I can only imagine, like you said, I mean, if there's a specific channel that people have to go to, they still have to go to the channel first,
Yes.
and then they have to see what's going on, and this eliminates that step entirely, which I
Oh,
think is
yeah.
great.
And just taking away from the staff's time, I know when I was in programs, like 15 minutes before, 20 minutes before, if you're running behind, like, again, we were in a 37-story high rise as well. So you're going to all the apartments now, the elevator's down. So, like, I can't make it to that room, or like, I got to use the stairs. It was just a mess. And then you come down to the program and you're like there's still only these 5 people, and you might have a daughter or a son that are like, why wasn't my mom at that activity? I asked you guys to get her there. And you're like, I tried. Like, I couldn't do much more. And it's one thing, of course, you can lean on the assisted living team or, the CNAs, but they might be in the middle of a shower for somebody. They might be in the middle of something else that they can't just go grab all of those residents. So I think just helping with that burden of it for staff, I know that was a big barrier for us.
In terms of communication from the community to the residents side too, I mean, is there a central hub or dashboard that they're able to access where they can communicate with all of the residents or some of the residents? Like you were saying, they could personalize some of those messages. Is that possible?
Yeah, so they can do a mass message to all of the seniors as well. So we've talked about that. Again, I'm thinking in our community, we just always had elevator problems. And it would always be before dinner. And
Yeah.
it's like an elevator's down, all the seniors are just like, wait, how am I getting down? And we would go up and run to the floors and be like, I got these floors, I got these floors. So being able to communicate things like that, and I know that's a one-off because not many senior communities are high rises, but there's always other instances where maybe something's going on in the dining room, or maybe there's some sort of, I don't know, there could be so many things within the community that they need to be known like pretty soon about. So to be able to send those mass messages, we've also talked about it just with like weather. So we've had some like AAAs that use this as well that are utilizing it for like, how can we send out weather reminders to seniors to just know about different things. So there's you can personalize the entire message. It's not, you have to type something into the message and then you sign it. So you can sign it from like the executive director, or from, if you want to make it more personal, you can just say your name. And then you also choose the duration that it stays on their television for. So if you just want to give it a reminder, you can also choose to have it read audibly. So for those who maybe aren't sitting right in front of the TV, they might be in the kitchen or something like that, you can have it read audibly so that they still get the message.
That's great. That's awesome. Love it.
Mhm.
Because you've worked in different levels of care, I'm curious about how technology adoption differs across each of those. I mean, you worked in independent living, assisted living, and memory care.
I actually haven't worked in memory care. We had a lot of seniors who probably could have used it, but they might have had like full-time caregivers. So the caregivers are really working with them. And even then, I see it helping the caregivers at least too, of like, I'm running out of things to do with them. Like, we could have an exercise class and we could both do it together, on the TV or something like that. But I think the adoption for is mostly independent living, just because they probably have devices in their units already, maybe whether it is like a smartphone, whether it be a tablet. But I also see, I mean, our assisted living residents were so involved. I think sometimes people mentally are like, oh, it's assisted living, so they're already they're not able to do much. And I know our assisted living residents were some of the ones who were leading the programs that we had. They were on the board and, the resident board. So I think that both of them really, and I think for assisted living, it is most helpful because usually there is that physical barrier of being able to like get up and, use the remote or find it, or just being able to help with that movement or the reminders to take the medication. But even with independent living, again, in a senior living community, you don't keep their health records. You don't have that sort of information. So if the family member is able to help them do those medication reminders or different things like that to keep them more independent for as long as possible, great. So really, I see kind of independent living and assisted living go together in that way of both being, pretty easily adopted. Again, I haven't worked in memory care, but I think for memory care, it would really need to be introduced beforehand, because I know that like maybe sudden technologies for them can be a little off-putting, but we've seen it
Yeah.
be successful for our individual consumers who have maybe gone to memory care because they already had it. So this is already something that they're used to, at least a little bit of, oh, I talked to my daughter on the TV, instead of it causing more confusion. But I think independent and assisted is pretty equal in the adoption. And right now we are about to do a pilot, which I'm excited about, in assisted living that really helps us pull on all of those health measures and check-ins, because right now, again, the individual consumer can use those check-ins and so can the other communities. But again, if it's independent living, they're not pushing those in the first place. So for us to really see how that's helping the staff, I think is going to be super powerful, and the residents, super powerful.
For memory care too, I know isolation and loneliness is such a big issue, epidemic essentially among the senior population, especially older adults over the age of 75, 80. There's a study done recently that said uh, older adults over the age of 65 who live alone spend up to 8 hours a day alone, and by the age of 80 they spend an additional 2.5 hours, so 10.5 hours a day alone.
Mm-hmm.
I completely believe that to be true. I mean, I see, even at 45, I see my social circle shrinking
Yeah,
every year, so I can only imagine by the time I'm 65 or 70 what that's going to look like. And so I can imagine how something like this could really help a family keep their loved one engaged, if they're feeling isolated
absolutely.
or lonely, and maybe they don't have family that lives close by, and they could use this to keep in touch.
Absolutely. And I think, again, with independent and assisted living, sometimes it's like, oh, this might be useful for assisted living because we have all the check-ins, but then independent living as well, they don't have the staff coming to check in on them
That's true.
throughout the day. So there's some of those that are missed, that it's like they see probably less people than the assisted living residents because they're having consistent care coming in and checking on them. Those needs might be missed a little bit. So I think really equally it's keeping that engagement up for both care
Mhm.
levels.
If a community wanted to roll this out, what do you think they need to do to ensure buy-in from both staff and residents?
Yeah, I think one, just being open to it and really just like, again, willing to listen to the residents and the staff. I think sometimes what our barrier becomes is kind of like, well, maybe not giving it an opportunity because suddenly it's like my staff might have to do more. And that's not what we want. We don't want this to be like a burden on staff. We don't want this to add more. So
One
really
more
what we're
thing. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I get it. It's like I can't do one more thing. But what we're trying to do is really making that as easy as possible. So partnering with an install group across the nation who, wherever the community is, we can be sure that they're installing it, because that already takes away from from the community of like, okay, now I got to install these, what's this
Hmm.
process? And then again, how we've created and updated our dashboard to show like how many calls has this senior had, how many AI conversations have they have, what's their fall risk, what's all of that. And it's all clearly laid out on a dashboard per resident. And they can adjust that as well if they don't want to see the AI conversations, because they don't push those. They can take those off, so they can kind of change that, but making everything be as easy as possible. So when they just log in, they can just see it and it's like, cool. Okay. I don't have to go do more, but up front there will be, I think it's just, again, the understanding of it is technology. There is some sort of learning up front
Sure. Yeah.
just for all. And then once you have it, it's like, okay, this is just second nature. And it again, it's not adding more. It will make things easier, but there is just like a process of setting it up. So I think it's just being open-minded to it, really, instead of just, no, I can't, there's just no more, no more capacity, because ultimately it will make things easier for the staff and the residents. There's just that little period of like adoption and getting it going that I think kind of turns people off. And that's with any technology, really, or new service. I know we'd be like, oh, we have a new process that we're putting in place, and everyone would be like, oh no,
No.
what, yeah, don't do it. And you're like, it will be better.
Hmm.
But you have to do, like, there's a little legwork to put it in.
Yeah. Well, I think even like the first time we got a smart speaker, we got our Alexa for the first time, it was
Mhm.
such a big deal. What can this thing do and how can we use it and where can we integrate it? What other smart devices can we connect to it? And now it's second nature. It's just become part of our household. But
Yeah.
that did take time to evolve and get used to
Adjust
it
to.
being in the mix. I know AI is such a huge topic. I mean, I've been to a bunch of conferences recently and everybody's talking about AI and data and personalization. How do you see AI evolving in senior living and what should providers be thinking about now to prepare for the future?
Yeah, I think just again being able to pull more information out of our seniors more easily. We gave so many surveys and like paper, surveys that it's like we're not getting them back, and we would get scored, on a community level of like you didn't get enough responses back. And the only way to really get responses is make it an activity, put it on the schedule and say everybody has to come to this room for these 2 hours and fill out the survey with us, which again, it's like, okay, now I got staff who are taking away all these hours to just like fill these surveys out. And it took a lot of time. So I think being able to use AI for something like that, that's another one of the things that we're trying to integrate is like a probably weekly at first, and then it would probably lessen, but like a weekly community overview survey that has like 8 questions, and it goes through a couple different like general topics of their community to give feedback to the community of like what they need to be putting attention to. Because I think, again, those could become quarterly surveys, but that information is so useful for the community to really make themselves better and stand apart. And I think, again, once you're at a level, you can easily maintain that, and hearing that good feedback of like, oh, they're loving the food, they're loving these things. Like, this is great. Even being able to use that of like, creating some agreement with seniors about like whatever they use in those surveys like can be utilized for like reviews and different testimonials for their community. So I think that's big, just again hearing from the residents in that perspective more, but then also using AI to pull on those like fall risk, just loneliness, questions like that where you might go ask a resident, like, are you lonely? And they're, no, I'm good, but the AI might ask them a couple questions about, kind of changing the language of how they're lonely. If they have
Hmm.
a group of people that they talk to regularly, do they talk to their family? So things like that the AI could pull. And again, just easily give that information to the community to then be like, we need to bring attention to this person. Maybe it's simply like an invite. Hey, this person seems like they actually want to be engaged more, but they're not someone who's going to engage themselves. So you kind of have to lead that engagement of, hey, like we'd love to see you at this luncheon, invite them to personal things like that. So I think it would overall just help that really personal experience for the seniors. I've seen it done really well with a program. It's called TSO Life. I don't know if you've heard of it, but
I have heard of
we
it. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, just the way that they're able to pull the information about each senior and their hobbies, their background, and you can easily match. Because I know when we started to use it at my community, I was like, this is amazing because I've been keeping all of this in my brain and I don't know how to relay this information to other people. I was like, I'm just somebody who sits down with the residents and gets to know them on that level of like, I could tell you where this person went to college or where this person grew up or what their careers were, but how do you keep that going once you leave, and how do you share that with your staff? So not, yes, I could make a personal experience for people, but I want to make sure that dining can, and housekeeping, and
Yeah.
just the whole community can. And the way that they're able to pull that information for each senior, again, sometimes it's a little tedious. We had to get that information through surveys, again, that were like 5 pages long. And, seniors often were like, this is too much. I don't want to do all this. So, you just keep going back until it's complete. But it's huge for the community to be able to just like look at that and make their programs and engagement in their communities so much more personal and just overall enhance the experience. So I think AI in those ways overall will just enhance resident experience. And then on top, then the family experience, because they're like, man, my dad's loving this place because they've invited him. He feels special. He feels like they're listening to him. Like, this has been great for all of us. So they're not worried about where their loved one is and like, are they liking it? Are they making friends? So just, I think overall, everybody feels more comfortable.
Yeah. Well, if you just look at the market in general, not even just the senior living industry, but consumers in general, over 70% of consumers, they expect a personalization and they want personalization in their
Mm-hmm.
marketing and their advertising. And it's kind of the same in their lifestyle too. They've come to expect it. When they walk into their favorite store or their favorite restaurant, they expect to be recognized and for
Mm-hmm.
people to maybe call them by their first name. So having software that can collect and compile data like this that would be helpful for everyone on the staff to get to know that person on a deeper level. And like you were saying, it's not just all up here in your head. It's now
Mm-hmm.
everybody on the team has access to it. I think that could be huge. And then also for new residents that maybe are feeling a little insecure or not as social as they normally would once they get comfortable in the community, being able to send them invites and be more proactive and, lead instead of expecting them to lead because they're new there, like that could be
Mm-hmm.
really beneficial too. Love that.
Absolutely. And I think that's what we would see a lot of times with new residents is, I mean, that's where our biggest misses would be is like, did we engage properly with these seniors upon arrival? And what does that look
Mhm.
like? Like the first weeks, the first 90 days, really, what does their experience look like? Have they attended any programs? And if not, you're like, oh, like we really missed an opportunity. So to be able to pull information like that out of them to see, because sometimes, again, they wouldn't talk about it, of like, oh, I used to do this and that would be something I'm interested in, or I've never tried this before, but I am interested in starting this sort of hobby, but I'm too nervous to go to the program because I've never done it. It's like we all feel that in some capacity throughout our lives. So, it's no different for them.
I think a lot of communities too, they want to invest in tech. They're open to it, but I think they're also worried about the costs and
Mhm.
how they're going to go about implementing it. What is the price point for on-screen and how are you making it accessible?
Yeah, so right now we're pricing it. It's usually purchased in bulk by a senior living community, and it's priced at $50 a month, and that per unit. So that includes obviously the device and access to all of the software for a year. So it would be an annual subscription, but that also offers access to our dashboard and our like enterprise manager portal. So again, they have access to as many users as they would want to add. So if they want all their staff in there, if they want select staff, it's really up to them. But what we've also done with organizations is applied for grants. So it really is dependent on the community. And if that's something that we've received grants for it, if that's something a community would be able to look into, then it's like, okay, let's come up with a plan of how we can utilize this in your community, the metrics we want to look to kind of pull on for the next year so we can apply for a grant together to get this, in your community. But right now, really, we've seen they've been able to purchase it in bulk. So the device is $100. The subscription is $600 for the year, but that device is a one time. So once you have devices in all your units, you don't have to repurchase those devices. If anything, like again, if people move out or switch rooms or whatever, that device can go with them. Or if they move out, we can just clear the device and it can stay in the room and the next person that moves in can utilize that device. And what we've seen right now, a community that we're working with, they actually charge it back to their residents. So at that point, for the community, it's up to them. They pay this to us, but however they want to go about it in their community, if it's going to be an amenity, if they're going to charge for it, that's really up to them. And they can kind of choose that price point. But the community that we're working with has integrated it into their cable and internet package. So everybody who has, moves in as they switched over to this new cable and internet, they also get an on-screen device. So they've created like a price point on their end that, includes all of that. So really it's up to the community. But so far we haven't had any really issues with the pricing. So I think we're at a good spot now.
Yeah, that's a great price per unit.
It
And then the subscription for all the access they get to engagement and opportunities for family members and even the community to be involved with helping the residents stay engaged. I think that's such a small price to pay for that.
Absolutely.
I love
And
that.
the family doesn't pay anything. So on their end, they download the app, but the app is free. So they just get invited through the link and can go through that, and they have access to all of that as well without having to pay additional costs.
Yeah, and like multiple family members can be tied to the
Mhm.
same account, right? Yeah,
Yep, as many
that's
family
great.
members. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think my last big question for you would just be the industry overall. I mean, what do you think are the biggest trends or will be the biggest trends in resident engagement and tech in senior living over the next 5 years?
With the I think really just pulling on the personal experience. And honestly, I think it's kind of overdue of being able to really personalize that experience. But I know during my time when I was doing that, other community, it was kind of like, oh, what, because it takes a lot more extra work. And so I think now with technology, we didn't necessarily have the technology at the time to be able to make all of these personal things, so it really is a lot of extra work. But now that we have the technology, I think it will really enhance really programs overall and engagement overall in communities to be able to get much more personable experiences. Obviously, we see the costs going up for, a stay at a senior living community. So I think with that, it's like, you kind of got to grow with the industry of like, what can we include? Because if we continue to increase our price, but we're staying right here, there's really nothing extra we have to offer. So I do think that adoption will start to come more easily with different communities and organizations. So I think overall, really just that more personal experience in senior living rather than just like, welcome to this community. This is what we do. It's now about you more, much more personalized care.
Is there anything in the on-screen space that you have rolling out in the near future?
Yeah, I mean, we're really evolving like week by week, which is exciting. It's cool to
That's
be
good.
in, yeah, a part of a startup where you get feedback and we can put it to use and just like update things. So again, the dashboard I'm talking about, like we just updated that in the last 2 weeks. So we had a dashboard before, but now that we're starting to work with more organizations, it's like, okay, great, let's see how can we make this more easy for them. Again, those AI check-ins and surveys, so we are going to kind of pilot a fall risk survey, a loneliness and isolation survey, and a general community overview survey. So we've put questions together, and those like fall risk and loneliness are no more than 5 questions, because again, I know the seniors are kind of like, I don't want to talk to you for too long.
Yeah.
But and then pulling those scores onto that dashboard for the staff to see, and also with that, working on, like, an overview email that goes out every night that kind of pulls all of the information that says, like, "Hey, here's your top 2 things that you need to look into." So, again, that takes it away from staff having to go in every day and be like, "Okay, let me go see who needs this and who needs this." So if we can just do, like, a pull of information to them to see like, hey, this is what, an overview of your community today. So again, evolving week by week, but those are some of the fun new things that we have coming up. And we also did just launch our tablet app as well. So now we have our TV device, but we also have Joy for the tablet, which switches just a tablet over to kind of like our basic on-screen service, is now just on the tablet all day. So again, that's usually for seniors who maybe family members already have an iPad laying around or a tablet. And again, you can just download that app and start utilizing it that way for those who are more comfortable with a tablet.
Awesome. Your
Yeah.
rate of innovation is
Yeah.
exponential. So that's
Yeah,
cool.
it's fun to see, all the different things. And again, just hearing the feedback, especially with the communities we're working with right now, is like it's not going to be the same for every community. We can kind of personalize it, but also getting that feedback from staff and families of just like what is working, what would be easier for you? What could simplify this, and really putting that into place for them. So, it's fun to see it all kind of evolve.
Yeah, I love it. So how can our audience stay connected with you and learn more about OnScreen and all the great things that you're doing?
Yeah, so we're really active online. So we have a big LinkedIn presence. We're also on YouTube. So that's another place where you can find a lot of individual videos specific to our features. So you'll find the AI in action, the health check-ins in action. So good place to check out. And just our website as well. If you go through, we also have Onscreen for senior living communities, Onscreen for AAAs, Onscreen for home care. So you can kind of go through it all and see what bucket you kind of fall into, and it goes through how on-screen can be useful for your organization or just individually as a consumer.
Okay. That's awesome. So as we wrap up today's episode, I want to extend a huge thank you to Savannah Andriacco for joining us and sharing your insights on how technology is reshaping senior living engagement. Your firsthand experience inside communities gives you a unique perspective on how tech can enhance connections, simplify staff workflows, and improve resident quality of life. If you want to stay connected with Savannah and learn more about Onscreen, visit onscreeninc.com and follow her on LinkedIn. We can follow the company on LinkedIn too, so I'll put all that in the show notes for you. So thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today. It was such a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. As always, we hope you found this episode insightful and inspiring. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform and stay tuned for more episodes where we continue to explore the evolving world of senior care, covering everything from innovative care models and leadership strategies to family support, technology, and the future of aging. And also remember that From Leads to Leases isn't just an audio experience. We're also a video podcast. So if you want to see the video versions of our episodes, like the one here with Savannah, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube or Spotify channels. And lastly, please like and share this episode with anyone who might find it useful. I'm Jerry Vinci, CEO of CCR Growth. Thank you for joining us on From Leads to Leases, and I'm truly grateful for your time and attention. Until next time, lead with strategy and with heart. Chat with you again soon. Thanks, Savannah.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to From Leads to Leases. Are you ready to fill your rooms faster and increase occupancy? Visit ccrgrowth.com to learn about our Senior Growth Innovation Suite, a proven system to generate highly qualified, tour-ready leads, accelerate sales, and reduce acquisition costs. Let's connect and turn your challenges into opportunities. See you next time.